Hey, how's everything going?
Good, man. How about you?
Good, good. All's good, man. Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
so last time I saw you was at NAMM in January. How did that go?
It went fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was good. I try to remember all the people I see at NAM, and I just can't.
there's no way.
I'm
But yeah,
like thinking back. I go, wait, did I see you? Yeah, I guess I did. Uh, oh
yeah, I hear you see a lot of people out there, man. It's you got to stand out there for a long time. But were you there the whole time? Were you there every day
yeah,
pretty much?
I was there every day.
Man, that's a lot.
I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so, man.
Well, I don't mind. I actually don't mind doing those shows. I kind of have fun, but we kind of we kind of treat it a little different. We have a few drinks as we do it, and everything's
Yeah.
like, you know, you kind of have to do that almost.
Yeah. I mean, you guys had a little booth back there. Did you have a little something back in the booth?
Yeah, we did. We hid hidden in the back.
Very cool.
Yeah,
So yeah, at the
yeah,
NAMM show you introduced your new vintage Plex.
sure
Uh so
did.
so what was the reception like?
Man, it was overwhelmingly great at the
Yeah.
show. I mean, they just plugged in and they're just like, "Oh my God."
Yeah. Yeah, if I got
It's so funny. You work your whole life, you make all these amps, you make all these kinds of amps, and then in the end, you just wind up making a Plexi.
yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
But a
Um
good one.
yeah, I've had the amp for a few days now. As you know, I've got a demo and I was blown away. I was like, man, this thing's a real deal. So, great job. I'm sure you're
Well,
gonna kill
it
the
does a
sales.
lot of things actually. And it's not just one thing. It's like, yes, it can do the full-blown Van Halen-y kind of Variac thing. Sure, it can do that. But really, that sound is really a sound of a cranked up old, English Marshall kind of thing.
Yeah.
And and if you play a different style, even with the exact same settings, it then, roll your volume knob down a little bit. It sounds like, could sound like the Allman Brothers. Or,
Yeah.
it really sort of morphs to what your playing style is and what you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah. That's kind of, one of the things that I noticed too, and it's a lot more versatile than you would think that it would be.
Hmm.
How did you come about making this amp? What was the inspiration behind it?
Well, I've had for years, I've had a 1968 Plexi Marshall that sort of was the inspiration for every amp I've made.
Yeah.
And I used to run it with a Variac, and I used to run it all cranked up, and to do that whole thing. And I loaded it down over the years with different power amps and effects and things, and um, but it was always a great, really great sounding one. Kind of has a weird history. It's I got it from a friend of mine that ran a store in Michigan, or still does, Motor City Guitar,
Oh yeah.
and he just called me up one day. Hey, there's this old Marshall here, this Plexi. I think you might want it because he knew I liked amps like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, sure. How much? 300 bucks. I mean, this was long. This was like
I was gonna
19.
say, when was this?
I don't know, 89 or something, 90 maybe. I don't know, somewhere around then. And sure, great. And he sent it to me. And I had had this other amp. It was interesting. This was before I was doing amps. And I had this other amp that was an old vintage 20 watt
Yeah.
that Reinhold Bogner had modified for me.
Yeah.
And it sounded great. So I get this amp. Of course, I shudder to think about this at the time. I get this amp and I go, can you do the exact same mod on the 50 watt? And I hated it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then at the time, I'm friends with Stevie Fryette. And at the time, he's like, just give it to me. I'll put it back to stock.
Yeah.
So he put it back to stock, and voila, that was
Yeah.
that spawned the whole amp line.
Yeah. Now, when you say that he brought it back to stock, did he look around for NOS tubes and
No,
and
no,
parts and
no,
stuff like
no,
that?
no, just stock spec. I
Okay.
mean, a lot of that was already still in it. There's just a few changed parts in it, and it was stock lead spec. So, which is what I would prefer, the tighter, kind of brighter
Yeah, yeah,
kind of thing. More so than a lot of the old 50-watt amps have. We kind of are leftovers from the JTM 45 era, and they're what they call a shared cathode, and they're a fatter front end,
yeah.
and they're kind of halfway between lead and a JTM 45, which is cool, but not quite what I want. I wanted the more rock, at the time, hard
Boys.
rock, kind of searing kind of thing. So he did lead spec. I mean, I didn't know what he was doing at the time.
Yeah.
And that just became the number one amp, period, forever. So what the Plex is a sonic twin with a couple extra bells and whistles to
Yeah.
the original amp. I say sonic twin because it's not made exactly the same way.
Right.
Uh, uh, it, but it is a sonic one-to-one twin of my amp.
So when you're trying to recreate something like that, um, how do you find the right parts and components to do that? I mean, do you just kind of start with, whatever you can get your hands on that you can mass produce and then sort of build around it? Or, what's the process?
Well, I've done this for years now, and I kind of know what parts I really like and stuff. And so it really was just a question of getting the basic amp up and going with what I knew to like, and then just slightly tweaking it till it sounded exactly the same.
Got it.
Um, which it is the same circuit. It's the same signal path and all that. But there's certain parts I like. The synergy mustard caps are all through the amp.
Yeah.
1 watt carbon film resistors, a certain kind of ceramic, like treble and bright caps that I particularly like. Um, you know, I kind of picked the tubes that were available that would get me the closest to the original amp.
Yeah.
My original amp had JJ power tubes, which is what we're using in these.
Oh wow.
We
So
did
no NOS.
no NOS. It's a production amp. It's not, it will continue to be in production. So I can't use NOS.
No, I mean you're 68.
Oh no,
What do
it
you have in
did
your
no,
68?
it had Chinese preamp tubes and it had JJ power tubes. That's what the 68 has in it. So,
Oh wow. Okay.
and I couldn't we at the time when we started this, we didn't there were no more Shugong Chinese preamp tubes. They've
Yeah.
now come back, which is cool, but we're still using the recipe that I came up with, which is like two different kinds of JJ preamp tubes.
Got you. Got you.
And it just worked. It sounded great.
Yeah. So I know I keep talking about NOS tubes and whatnot. Are people trying NOS tubes in your amps, and are you getting any feedback? Or are people sticking
I mean,
mulligan in there or rebiasing?
occasionally they do. Occasionally they, try a few preamp tubes or things like
Yeah,
that. Which is fine. I think really, like the first slots or something, you can maybe
like a
pick
few
and
on.
choose like something you might like better. But even those old tubes, I mean, there was good ones and bad ones, and
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, you can sit there with an amp on the bench and say you have 5 Mullard preamp tubes, all the same kind. Those 5 preamp tubes all sound different. So you can go crazy and you can sit
yeah,
there and try to find the one that you love, but then if you ever have to repeat it,
yeah.
it's not repeatable.
I've been down that road, so yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear
It's
you.
cool, and if you're only using the amp once in a while and it's in a recording studio or
Right.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not really like hell bent on using NOS tubes.
I mean, I think it's great for, tone chasers and whatnot,
Sure.
but for practical people playing day in and day out, no, it's not practical.
Yeah,
So,
it's not practical at all.
yeah, but I hear you.
Yeah. So I mean, the things I added to this amp, of course, were the Variac feature, which is the switch, the power switch, low voltage, high voltage.
Yeah,
Um, Low voltage is the same as 90 volts on a Variac. It also switches the bias in the amp to bias properly for that voltage. Um, and the other thing is I added the post phase inverter master,
Yeah.
which is a particular kind that I like better than other ones. I find it's pretty, if you played with that much, I don't know how you've listened to it. So,
I've,
um,
I've listened to it at all levels. Master cranked all the way, in the middle, down low,
yeah,
the whole gamut, the whole range.
I would say the master works quite well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Uh, Maybe you just lose a little gushy mid range that you get when it's really pushing. But is that really the speakers being pushed then that you're really getting the change in tone from? Because if you do it, like say you attenuate the amp with, say, a Fryette power station or something, and then just use the master, you kind of find that it sounds the same all the way through the sweep.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Really, really interesting. Um, and then the other thing that we added was the switchable bright caps.
Yeah,
So the switchable bright caps normally on a vintage amp like that on like an old Marshall, the volume one has a really big bright cap, 4700 picofarad bright cap. It's kind of useless below 5 because it sounds like an anemic as it can be. And then the bass channel or the darker channel has
yeah,
no bright cap generally. And a lot of people jumper them and blend. So
yeah,
we have that auto blend feature on this amp.
yeah. No
And
fumble.
you can
Yeah,
blend in the bass channel, which is nice. So like the bright switch to the right was the 4700 picofarad. So if you set the volume one to the right and leave the volume two bright switch in the center, that's exactly like an old vintage amp. Now, what you do have though is a 100 picofarad bright cap also as another option. Way less severe, just adds a little bit of brightness, or none in the center. And what it also gives you is that same configuration on the bass channel, which is interesting.
yeah.
So
I'm
when I
familiar
was
with that.
demoing this, the bass channel, you could use just the bass channel with the big bright cap and say a Strat or something, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
It's got a big, bold, fat, cool tone, or some blending combination of whatever you want with those two knobs, that will get you the sound you're looking for.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I played around with it a lot, and I don't have a Strat here right now, but I plugged in a Telly, and
mhm.
yeah, I mean, you're able to get a wide variety of tones out of it. And I posted a little bit on social media, and then people are asking me if I can get a Hendrixy type of tone, and I was like, yeah, with those bright switches, I mean, you can really kind of dial in, what
Oh yeah,
tones,
yeah. We were doing a clinic. We were doing a clinic, and our guitar player that does it with a semi bowler.
Yeah, that's
We had a Friedman guitar with a single coils and stuff, and we were like, hey, let's try this out. Master all the way up, high headroom, high voltage,
yeah,
and I just played with it. He's playing the Strat, and he was almost playing like Stevie Ray Vaughan type licks, which is not what I've ever heard him do, but he did it well.
yeah,
And it was like killing it. It just sounded big, fat, round, and big
yeah.
note. It just sounded like it should. It's not it's not just one kind of amp. It's literally everything that one of those old amps would do with some more features.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So do you think that it covers sort of the full range of like the classic vintagey plexi thing? I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, yeah.
Well, it doesn't exactly do JTM 45. That's kind of a
Right,
whole
right. It's not
different
gonna do that.
thing. But the classic lead spec range, yes, it does all gamuts of it.
Yeah, yeah. My personal holy grail has been a 73,
Yeah,
super lead that I played a
that would
while,
be a
and
lead
it was a
spec.
100
Yeah.
watt. And man, that
Yeah.
thing just it killed me, man. It rocked me. And when I played your ramp, I said, man, you can kind of get those types of tones with this.
Yeah, totally. You totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
It's a beefy 50. It's got relatively higher plate voltage in it than some 50s would. So it feels more like 100. Kind of has that attack.
Yeah, yeah, it's got that attack and it moves a lot of air too. That I think that surprised me the most. You know, you crank that thing up and it'll knock you on your ass. It'll knock you back. It's got a lot
Oh,
of air
sure.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Proper. I like to call it proper.
yeah. Gotcha, gotcha. So when you turn the master all the way up, does it take it out of the circuit?
Completely out of the circuit.
Yeah,
I mean, completely out of the circuit.
yeah. And that's how your other amps are designed too. Is this master just like the master on your other amps?
Has nothing to do with any other amp I make.
Really?
Yeah, this is totally different.
How's it different?
Well, it's a post phase master, so it's in the
Yeah.
power section of the amp before the power tubes. And there's a way, well, it's hard to totally explain without kind of giving it away.
Yeah, yeah. Don't give it away. Don't
uh,
give it away. We
but
just
but
we just know that it's different and it works.
yeah, and this particular one, as you turn it down, it actually slightly distorts the phase inverter a little more. So it sounds a little juicier than some other post phase masters would.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to get a high headroom clean at whisper volumes on this amp.
Right.
That's not going to happen. If you want headroom, you need to turn that master up and just turn the volume down and get it. But
Yeah, exactly. That's how I was running. I think I ran, both volumes like around, maybe 9 o'clock or so, and
Mhm.
then, crank up the master and it's right there, great sound.
but it'll get really grindy and tight too.
Yeah.
It's not loose sounding really. It's really, if you get the distortion going and cranked up,
Yeah.
it's grindy, tight.
So do you design your amps around a certain speaker or certain speakers?
Well, I mean, this one kind of sort of to me says greenbacks,
Yeah.
flush greenbacks. That's what you don't have to use it with that, but I mean, probably that's what I would suggest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using it in an Avatar 212, and I've got a Fane F70 in there, and G12 T75 or whatever it's called, and
I mean,
those
I think it'll
combinations.
work with a variety of speakers. It just
Yeah, yeah,
depends on, I mean, we played it through, we had a Friedman horizontal 212 at one of the clinics that had two 65-watt creambacks in it.
yeah. How that sound?
And that sounded great in the 212 with it. So I think there's, a variety of things can be used. It's just a different color.
Got it, got it. So, a lot of people are asking me, what's the difference between the Plex and the small box?
It's a totally different amp. So the small box, I mean, there's some DNA that exists. I mean,
Yeah,
actually, technically, the transformers are the same. Well, the power transformer is sort of the same, but it had an added feature to it, so it's different, I guess. But it's basically the same output transformer and same transformers. But the small box is a preamp based amp,
yeah, yeah,
meaning so the Plexi channel on the small box, if you have your master lower on that channel, is only going to kind of get you to like AC/DC sort of gain. It is kind of a traditional Plexi channel, what I call it. That's all it is.
yeah,
You crank that amp on 10 and turn the thump off, it would get you closer in the ballpark of what you're getting out of the Plex. But there's some more stuff in between. It won't quite drive quite the same way because there's a loop in between and the level is a little limited into the power section. So you won't quite be able to do it.
yeah, yeah,
You can't put a loop in a plexi like this because all the saturation is in the power section. So if you put a loop in between the preamp and the power section, it's sort of like putting a DS1 after your delay.
yeah. I was kind of
And no,
surprised when
doesn't
Marshall came out with
work.
the reissues and they put a loop in it.
Doesn't really work. I mean, if you set the amp
Yeah,
really clean, okay, yeah. But at that point, you might, if it's clean, you can have the effects in front.
yeah.
Um, yeah, the loop doesn't really work in a plexi kind of amp. Can't do it. And people
Gotcha.
argue with me, well, how do you do it in the small box? Well, the small box again is a preamp. So like the BE channel on the small box is it's all the distortion drives in the preamp section.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you have a power amp, that's just amplifying it. With this, that's not the case. You're distorting the phase inverter of the amp and the power tubes of the amp eventually.
got you. Let's go back to the low voltage, high voltage switch.
Yeah.
So why did you do that? I know that you said that you were running your 68 with a Variac, and I've done the same with a 73, and sounds great, feels great. Is that why you did it, just to sort of get that sort of Variac type of feel?
Yes. Well, the Variac thing for that sort of EVH kind of sound
Yeah,
is kind of an integral part in the tone.
right,
So,
right.
and that's how I always ran my amp, always. So I was recreating my amp, so we needed to have the Variac in it, and a lot of people are buying this amp for that kind of thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, they want that blown up EVH sort of thing. It
yeah.
wasn't necessarily geared strictly at that sound, obviously, because it does so many other things, but it will do that sound.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying, oh, I heard that it was an EVH type of amp, or I heard it was this, I heard it was that. But my experience, you can get a wide variety of tones and pretty much covers everything. So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, pretty versatile.
yeah.
Yeah. So are there any big name players that are playing the amp right now, or that have requested the amp, or you have anybody, out on the
Right.
road with anybody right now?
No, not yet because it's not out yet.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
can't
it's
get
not
stuff
out yet.
ahead of time, right?
Actually, Steve Stevens was hemming and hawing about getting one.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be a great recording amp. And I'm like, yeah. So I imagine he will get one.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, a lot of other people too. Like guys that were at the NAMM show and stuff were like, I got to get one, man. Doug Rappaport was like, yeah, sign me up. I'm in. you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
like, uh, uh, several other people. I mean, we've already sold a ton.
yeah.
They haven't all shipped yet, but they're going.
So how far in advance do you have to put them into production, to get ready to go to market with these?
Oh man, I mean, we've been making them for maybe a month already.
Oh, that's it? I kind of figured
Oh
it'd be
yeah.
longer than that.
Well, I mean, getting them into production. I mean, you got to make sure you have all the parts, and then
Yeah, yeah,
all the boards need to get stuffed, and then you've got to put them all together. So it takes time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
It
so,
takes
so how?
time.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, we're making lots of them though. I mean, I
Yeah,
think the first run we had parts for 450 of them. So, uh, you know, that's a lot of amps.
yeah, that's a lot of amps, a lot of
Takes
amps.
a while to make 450 amps.
I hear you, man. And I know that the boutique is doing your amps for you. How's that working out with them?
Oh, it's worked out great. I mean, we've been doing it with them for years.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I'm heavily involved. I mean, I test all my amps. I'm the final test. Yeah. I mean, they're teched before I get them, but and then I do the final inspection and test.
yeah, got it,
And
got it.
that actually, after they're assembled, they're tested one other time.
Wow, unbelievable.
So, try to catch anything that, any of us miss. So it's really tested 3 times.
Yeah, yeah. And anything else coming out in the vintage line?
There will be.
I think I heard you were working on sort of a
Oh,
Vox.
yeah, that one's
Yeah.
next. That
Okay.
one's next. I don't know how soon, but that one's next.
So maybe not this year, maybe next year.
Probably realistically next year, maybe early next year.
Yeah. All right. I guess we will see.
We will see. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I
Well, hey,
mean, it takes
Dave.
a minute.
Well, hey, Dave. Thanks for your time today. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy, so I'm gonna let you go do your thing. But
No problem.
the amp sounds awesome. I'm gonna return it to Avi today, or
Okay.
send it off to the next person, or whatever. But yeah, I think sounds great, and good luck with it.
Okay, awesome, man.
All right,
Glad you like it.
thanks. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, bye.